I have no idea, but we're allegedly live. So hello.
Okay. We were streaming before, now we're live. Hello, everybody.
Yes. It is Thursday and not
Thursday
Friday.
today. Correct. Yeah. We're gonna
And,
be taking some quote unquote taking some time off. At least I
right.
will be.
And we went to the moon.
Yes,
Going
again.
to the moon in
No, yeah, we're
process.
going to the moon again. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, we
Yeah.
will be going to the moon again. I think that's
Returning to the
the right way to
moon.
phrase
Yeah. No, not Nathan and I. Everybody at home
it.
is really confused, I'm sure. But
Although
NASA has,
random short story, I did try to apply to be on a mission to go to Mars.
this is the first I'm hearing about it. Could have the first interstellar
Inst-
podcast.
Instant rejection, by the way.
Yeah, but is it like insurance rejection where you just have to like get a lawyer and be like, no, actually, we're
No,
totally qualified.
I honestly, I guarantee you I was not qualified, but I was like, yeah, why not? Let's just see what happens.
I don't know how do you qualify to go to Mars? Like that's a one-way trip, right? Like
I mean, I think on the application, I remember it was like, do you have any specific sets of skills that were hard to obtain? And I think specifically it called out like either like infrastructural engineering or
oh
medicine or
shit.
stuff like that, right? So, uh, yeah.
Survivalism. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, no, I've seen some of those. I never applied. Don't really think that it's real at this point. Like we can barely get to
Yeah,
the moon.
yeah.
Um, well, it's interesting, right? Because the rocket and the lander and all this stuff, like part of the flight, this is the first time we've put people in it and shot them off the planet for a
Mhm.
long time. And this
Yes.
will be the first time we'll have orbited the moon in like what 50 years or something like that. I think it was 72 maybe was the last time.
Mm.
And
Wow.
the purpose of this mission is to test all the shit to make sure that it actually works.
Yeah.
And I think it's really fascinating. Like the topic tie-in will work here at some point, but like
If you need to set it up.
I don't know. We should probably set it up. It's just
Yeah.
well, I will take it into kind of like reverse what we were talking about before we went live slash streamed or whatever the order
Yeah,
is.
whichever term. Yeah.
Uh, I was watching the NASA press conference and there was all these like questions about like kind of weird shit to be honest. It's just like this is nothing to do. What do you media get better? But then there was a couple people who actually asked good questions, and there was like a lot of really unexpected damage on the launch site for the last rocket that went up, and then this one they were expecting random shit to be broken too.
Mm.
And the thought occurred to me. I was just like, we've been doing this for like what 50, 60 years. Like, how do we not have it down yet?
Yeah.
Like I get it. It's a fucking rocket. It's the most powerful vehicle humanity has ever created. The thing goes what 17,000 miles an hour, some ungodly speed. I get that random shit breaks, but like they were talking about how like the doors were like blowing off some fucking like access, and they were like, "Yeah, that's never happened before. And we don't know why." And I'm like, "How do you like? What the hell, right?" Like it's just so weird to me that it feels like we're doing this for the first time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sort of reminiscent to me of some software where like you have something that works, and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden it seems like everything that you thought you knew about it just doesn't seem to work anymore, and you're trying to
right.
figure out why the heck,
You put
what
it
the
on
heck
a new
changed.
system or like
Yeah, exactly.
different
Yeah, and
data
you're
center. Yeah,
looking at the code changes, like nothing changed. Why is everything blowing up? And
right. Yeah, you literally do a bit by bit transfer to a different server,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
crashes for no reason. Yeah, yeah. I thought that was really interesting, and I think the thing that really struck me was they live stream this stuff for the most part, and like yeah, there's parts of it you don't see, and there's the crew have like privacy and stuff, but they pretty much have like a webcam like in the capsule that they're like
Mm,
broadcasting live to, and then they show the mission control stuff and the news. If you watched on like I don't know mainstream news, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but like if you didn't watch the live feed
sure.
from NASA, I was kind of flipping around a little bit and noticed like everybody as soon as the thing like lifted off the pad and there was like a smoke trail, they're like, okay, and we're going to talk about also some other bullshit
Yeah.
now. Whereas NASA, like getting off the pad is like arguably the most important
One.
part.
Yeah.
That's just like that just unlocks the next most important part.
Right.
and there's a lot of other stuff they got to do. There's a lot of other stuff that has to go right before they even separate from the vehicle. And there's all this. So we were watching the live stream, and it's kind of boring at points because you're just kind of waiting. And then they, so they're finally orbiting the Earth, and then like the radio stops working. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, we've been doing this for how long? We have a
Yeah.
space station that orbits the planet, and like arguably like the first, human flight in this spacecraft, and the fucking radio stops working. Like, what is going on? Again, shit happens, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
100%. And they had to like reboot the damn computer to like get the radio working,
Classic.
right? Like,
Yeah. Classic. Turn it off and turn it back on.
and so I'm watching this, and I'm just like, of course they lose the radio, right? And so like mission control is trying to like transmit anyway, and just in the event that they can hear. Turns out they couldn't. They got it all figured out.
No way.
Yeah, no, right. They got it all figured out, so it was good. Nothing like going to prod on
Yeah.
systems, right? Like,
Right. Yes.
but yeah, so they finally figure that out, and then they start doing their little status check stuff, and and then I heard something, and I was like, it sounded something about like the toilet. And I was like, what the fuck? Like the toilet doesn't work? And then so they're reestablishing their protocol. There's protocols for all this shit. And so then they're like, yeah, we copied on the toilet. Stand by. We're looking into it. And I guess for people who don't know this stuff, like the people in the spacecraft like have computers and like status and shit. And then the ground control people also have data, and they usually have access to more data than the folks do, or it's easier for them to crunch it. And so they're everyone's doing their job and trying to figure it out. And then they like proceed to troubleshoot this toilet issue for like a good 30 minutes live to the whole fucking world / galaxy, right? Like we're broadcasting this into space. And I remember just laughing because I'm like, of course the shitter is broken, right? Of course, right? The first thing that they were like, they was one other like caution or something. They were like, yeah, that's normal or whatever, it's fine. And I'm like, and then the toilet's broken. Of course it does, right? And I was kind of thinking about, we talked a little bit about conspiracies last week, and one of the conspiracies is we didn't land on the moon. And I'm just like, how do you believe that when NASA's literally troubleshooting like a toilet issue on live internet broadcast? Like, if we wanted to like have some era of prestige or something, we would easily just like black that out, right? Or like no one would know, right?
Yeah.
And then in the press conference, they do these every so often for launches, and they talked about it. They're like, yeah, we had a minor issue. We're working on it. Like, we think it's fine, but until we know, we don't know. And it turns out this morning it's fine. But like, I just, I was just like a level of transparency and professionalism that all of these people, I mean, I'm laughing about it now. I was laughing about it at the time. It's ridiculous, right? Because you're like, of course it's the toilet. Like it like there's, oxygen, probably number one importance. Probably number two, or cooling too. You don't want to fry. And then I would like arguably say that like waste removal is like right up there in like at least the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Yeah.
Right. So they described it as you're in a 6-person tent with 4 people.
Yeah.
Right. So you're like in a pretty like small bathroom basically with a bunch of people. Like waste removal is important. But like the professionalism, and that they have this this woman on there who's like must be the PR person on the live stream, and she tries to translate all the NASA bumbo
what a test.
And they had some really fancy fucking word for like waste removal system, and they kept trying to use it, and eventually it just got like reduced to like the toilet doesn't work. And then there's the other thing that I was really impressed by is there was a multi-step procedure to work the toilet, because anyone who knows anything about NASA or like space travel, it's like you prep, and all the people who build the stuff, write everything down. It's like the world's worst engineering spec, because like it has to work. And if it doesn't work, the people who are literally off the planet need to be able to figure out how to like get it working again. And they also kind of need to understand it too. It's like they're all kind of technical people, but they're not, most of them are not like electrical engineers or mechanical engineers. And so they had this like very detailed flushing protocol that they were trying to align on what part got stuck.
Oh,
And like I
interesting.
kind of feel bad for them because it's like, you know, they everybody who's human knows that this is just kind of funny and like a little
Yeah, right,
embarrassing,
right.
you know. And so it was one of those things where I was just like, you know, people, they talk about all the conspiracies in the world, and I'm like, why would we have conspiracies if we're literally troubleshooting the toilet on like international air, right? Like,
I mean, I could see how someone on the opposite side might say, as an example of incompetence, this is why we never went to the moon in the first place. We couldn't figure out how to get the toilet to work.
well, my understanding is the first time we went, they didn't really have a toilet. They
They
had
didn't
like
have,
a,
right, yeah, yeah, they didn't have that, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
I'll let people use their imagination.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the point for why it feels like we haven't been doing this for so long, because things
Yeah.
change, right? So it's
Yeah.
like we have to reinvent or come up with these new processes
Or
for,
update, right? And I
yeah,
think like
absolutely.
the mission, the full mission, I think is like 10 days and some change. And I think they can do it faster if they wanted to like speed run it. I think you can do it in like 6 or 7 days. Um,
What a way to phrase it. Speed run
I know,
orbiting
right?
the moon.
Well, the first Apollo mission around the moon, I don't remember the numbers. I think it was like 5, 6, or 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I don't.
And they literally just orbited, right? They just kind of like did a quick loop and then went home, um, to learn how to do it and like figure out shit and like what happens when you go behind the moon, like how fast does stuff recover if there's an issue, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the point of this spacecraft, from what I understand, and the whole point of like having a toilet, for example, is like longer duration space flight,
Mhm.
right? Like, can you keep somebody in the orbiter for like 2 weeks? Right. And anybody who's
Right.
done like wilderness camping would know that waste removal over 2 weeks would be pretty not cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, these are the best of the best, but like also, come on. Right. Like, and so I think
We're
it's like it's such
humans.
a,
Yeah.
I know, right? It's such a fascinating, you know, it's like literally the book Everybody Poops, right? Like
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
it's every human, you know, goes to the bathroom, and it's such like a, it's such a human experience. And like just imagine like living without a functional toilet in, you
Mhm.
know, a small bathroom, basically, right? It's like, go in your bathroom, pretend the toilet's broken, and now try to live in there for a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck.
In the bathroom. Yeah. In the bathroom.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good luck. That's what they're
Yeah.
doing, right? And you know, you're eating like jello and shit, like not even real food, and like it's hot and cold, and you don't get to sleep because you're constantly doing work. You know, you get 2 hours of sleep at a time, and like, see how fun that existence is, you know. Um, but yeah, so the amount of transparency was just absolutely mind blowing to me. The professionalism of everybody involved. Nobody made like a poop joke. I was a little
Mhm.
disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would have been an interesting icing on the cake kind of thing of like,
Yeah,
we're serious people, but we know how to take humor when it comes to us. Yeah.
right. You know,
Yeah.
and the thing too is, again, this is like the first time people have been up in space in this thing, and they're prepping to go. And I'm sure everybody was like, oh god, if like the toilet's broken, like do we have to scrub the mission and return them because they, you know, they can't use
what a
it,
what a
like,
what a reason to end a mission. Toilet wasn't
right.
working.
What and I'm sure, you know, they go through every scenario they can imagine, and they train for this stuff, and there's like the common stuff that they kind of expect that could go wrong. Nobody on their bingo card probably has the toilet
Toilet
breaks,
doesn't work. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or at least the first go of it, like, you know, they're up in space, and I'm assuming they turn everything on, right? I don't know, maybe someone needed to use it. We didn't get that level of transparency. But yeah, and that it's interesting because I just finished rewatching the Chernobyl series on HBO.
Yeah,
And for folks who don't know, Chernobyl is a city in modern Ukraine-ish, kind of Belarus-ish.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, it depends who you talk to, but it's up in that region. And
Yeah.
um, there was a nuclear reactor, and it exploded in the, what is it, mid 80s. I think it was like 86. And
Sounds about right. Yeah.
it leaked radioactive material
Radioactive.
for months. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was really bad. And the show kind of starts the night of the explosion and goes. There's a little bit of time pushing through time, so you kind of spoiler alert. There was a trial, right? I mean, it's a historical thing, so like if you are
Yeah,
worried
yeah,
about
you can look. Yeah,
spoilers, like I'm a little
right.
worried for you. But then it goes through the trial, so I think it's over the space of like about a year, give or take,
Mhm.
and they do a really good job of like hitting all the key points. But the reason that it happened was kind of operator negligence.
Mm,
They were kind of doing something dumb. And for folks who don't know anything about the former Soviet Union, incredibly bureaucratic, incredibly um, antithetical to like America. Like a lot of people are listing in the US or in European countries, basically the opposite. Like you don't really have a choice. Your boss is just tells you what to do and you have to do it. And they probably don't
mhm.
know why they have to do it because it all just kind of comes down from the central committee. You can't question it because the perceived power of the Soviet Union is like the paramount thing. And they were trying to do kind of a stupid thing. A bunch of problems happened, and instead of staying stop, we need to like do it the right way, or there's things we're not accounting for. It
So they're
was
moved.
basically do
Yeah,
it anyway.
yeah.
And what happened was there were the controllers created a condition in which the reactor exploded in a way that nobody really thought was possible.
Mm,
There's a lot of technicals that the end episode does a really good job of going through why, but effectively it was discovered that there was a critical part of this reactor that if operated a certain way would explode, but
mm,
that was covered up, right? And
mhm.
so the Russian intelligence agency, the KGB, classified it. They removed the scientific literature, so only the people who did the discovery knew, and they were forbidden from telling. And so there's a pretty big secrecy element. There's a big ego componentry of like nothing the Soviet Union can do is wrong, and we're all powerful, and like don't question the power, or you like literally get disappeared. But then there was like the lack of transparency of in the process. There's a lot of lack of training. And they also took a lot of shortcuts, right? They
Mm,
wanted to make things cheap and mass producible, which is a pretty good goal. But in doing that, they didn't put a secondary containment dome over the reactor, which is standard pretty much everywhere now. I think even in Russia they do that. So that's what those big cement domes are, and why things are expensive and take forever to build, because in the event that the reactor everything catastrophically fails, there's a giant concrete bucket over it that in theory
yeah,
should stop another Chernobyl. And we knew this before. They knew this before. The design of the reactor was done in a cheap way that made it incredibly difficult to operate and pretty much unstable all the time. And so you're constantly
mm.
trying to like, it's like if you're driving a car, you're like slamming on the gas and slamming on the brake at the same
At
time,
the same
trying to
time. Yeah,
maintain like 50 miles an hour exactly. Because if you go 60, the car blows up. And if you go 40, the car blows up.
yeah.
And if you like slam on the brakes and stop the car completely, some other car smashes into you. And if you push down the accelerator, you smash into another car. So it's basically you're like kind of screwed the whole time.
Isn't that the purpose of speed?
I think so.
The
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Russian reactor speed. No one knows.
exactly.
Yeah. And so like these don't exist. I don't think they're active anywhere else in the world now. They learned, and there's some safeties, and then some of the design caused anyway, fascinating. But the thing that I just finished this week, I think, and I'm watching the moon thing,
Mm,
and we're broadcasting to the world that the toilet in the
toilet, right.
spacecraft doesn't work, and we're like trying to fix it. And then I'm thinking through all the Chernobyl scenes and just kind of what I know about the Soviet Union and like why did it collapse? Well, you get a bunch of incompetent people who are basically rule followers who don't know what they're doing and are just
Mm,
told to do shit, and then they try to execute on it, and then it's just it's a cascading chain of failure, and eventually something happens that's so fucked that you can't cover it up, like a nuclear reactor explosion, and then the whole
right,
charade
right.
comes down. And so like the lesson that I think is learnable there is like transparency is paramount with everything. and uh the truth always comes out is kind of the adage, like no matter how crazy or how secret things are, like the facts always come out. It might not come out in the way that you expect. It might not come out in your lifetime. It always happens, right? Like people, 100% of the time, every time. And
Yeah,
I thought it was
yeah.
just really interesting to see it manifest in 2026 yesterday,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're all human, I guess, in the same
right?
sense.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I think like the parallel with like the so what for this for folks is that with the all these tech layoffs and like layoffs in general and
Mm, mm,
unknown situations, information hoarding, siloing, like all of these things that people either tend to like natively go towards or um, maybe instinctively go towards to try to maintain power and control are like the absolute last thing you actually want to do in a situation
mm.
of unpredictability or in strife. And it's this the old adage of like you're stronger together, but if you're all working on different information or different silos and have different visibilities, then you will not succeed, and if you do succeed, it's a minor miracle. Whereas a
Right, right.
team who has the same information, who has a defined plan, who has expertise, who has the trust to work, and having to constantly check, I'm not having to constantly check Nathan's work because I think he's going to try to sell me out to the Americans or whatever in Soviet land.
Yeah,
That
right.
I know you're going to do your job. I'm going to do my job. If we find some problem, we're going to figure out what the problem was. We're not going to assume that someone's sabotaged or someone's incompetent. And so there's a lot of those like lessons I think in this that are a lot of people will hear, but I think history is really easy for folks to forget. And like this was, not even a lifetime ago. There's so many people
Yeah,
alive today who still live in the exclusion zone or were a part of it. Um, but yet at the same time, I see those same conditions being repeated. Yet the only people that ever go to the moon has been America. And how did we do that? Well, we fucking collaborate and and it's not perfect. And no, you don't broadcast every single thing. You can't go to the NASA website and download all the plans for the rocket, right? I'm not crazy and talking about absolute transparency. But when something goes wrong in this country or in most, companies, like the best way is to just like figure it out as fast as you can and acknowledge it and figure out why it happened and how not to happen again.
yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
it's
I think
just
I
so
tie.
basic, right? That
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it's basically, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people miss it. Right? It does, in my mind, tie a lot to humility or integrity. Like as you're
yeah,
describing things that happen here, the Enron scandal is another one where
yep,
it's just blatant lying covering things up. Right? It's weird because it's like you could see it happen on those types of scales, but you can also see it in maybe smaller scales. So, like if you're an academic and you're writing a research paper, do you omit all the data that doesn't happen to support your hypothesis or whatever, right? And there are some that would do it, omit the data, right? So it's, in my mind, applies more to the human value of just having integrity in your work and having the
yeah.
humility in your work to know that you messed up, try and either own up to it or figure out a way to fix it
You
without
have to
being
have,
so.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, but you
No,
have
no,
to
you
have
got
a
to.
system that isn't punitive,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And that's what I see so often is why is this broken? Who screwed up? Well, who screwed up? Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they were malicious. Like you got to figure that out. But
Mhm.
the number one, question needs to be like, why did this happen, and how do we prevent it? Or should we? Sometimes like mistakes, you're just like, well, okay, well, oops, you move
Yeah,
forward, right? You don't have to
yeah.
necessarily correct everything either. But I see a lot of this in especially corporate America is when resources get tight and then everybody tries to, it's like Game of Thrones to build the fiefdom, and it's just the same set of behaviors, and to some extent they're very incentivized in our economy and our society, but at the same time we would never have those people on the way to the moon right now if it were for those
Hmm.
behaviors. And I think part of it's easier to see because it's engineering, right? When the reactor explodes, it's really fucking
Yeah,
obvious,
it's yeah, you know, yeah,
right?
you know,
When the
something happened,
rocket
right?
explodes, it's really obvious. When the
Yeah,
astronauts, can't use the toilet and have to scrub the mission, it's really obvious. And so the
yeah,
only way to really uh, win at those challenges is to be transparent and have that. And I feel like in other disciplines, because I've worked across a bunch of different stuff, I know you have too. It's a lot
mhm,
easier to kind of cover stuff up, or to perpetuate those lies of like you don't need the transparency, or you don't need to know, it's not your, and not that you have to tell everybody everything either, but um, if those conditions aren't present, you're not going to succeed. And if you are going to succeed, it's going to be much slower. And someone who does inhabit those um, attributes or
value
behaviors,
systems, yeah, yeah.
yeah, is going to win.
Mhm.
Again, you might not win the first time, but it will happen. Like and like this is why like I believe so much in open source.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
absolutely. Agreed.
I run a company where we open source pretty much everything. Um, we've talked through strategies on this, but it's like, why do you give away your product for free to the source for? You have to do a little work, I guess, to make it run.
Yeah,
That because I've learned from other people's source, and I've learned from other people's mistakes, and that's like the wisdom coefficient of life. In that knowledge is only useful if you learn something from it, and if you have to apply the knowledge yourself, it helps, maybe 10% of the way to understanding. But if you can actually apply knowledge without having to go through all of the work and understand and synthesize lessons learned, that's called wisdom. And then being able to
yes,
apply that to not make those same mistakes, or not have to go through the same patterns to make those mistakes, is wisdom. And we don't have that if nobody talks. We don't have that if people um, you know, have closed source problems. And like security
yeah,
is another one where we've really come around to this, right? Where it's like people who find vulnerabilities in software don't just publish the vulnerability for the whole world transparently. They go to the company. There's kind of a universal standard. Everyone does a little bit differently, but there's a known process that you go through. And then you eventually, once it's fixed and
then you
readily
publish things. Yeah,
patched, then you publish it.
yeah,
Well, then people can, learn how to make more vulnerabilities. Well, yeah, but other people can learn how to fix more vulnerabilities.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the one thing I wanted to touch upon was like the collective wisdom, right? Like
Mhm.
as individuals, we build wisdom over our lifetimes, but part of working in an organization is building the collective wisdom of the entity that you're working within, right? And if you're not communicating that, or if you're not expressing that, even within an organization, then collective wisdom doesn't grow.
Right.
So it's like sharing that, and ideally, it's cross organizations, right? As a society,
Yep.
we sort of push the needle forward, and that's what
And,
science is, I think.
yeah. And it's so
Mm,
easy to break it though, because as soon as you have people who start to hoard
yeah,
things and are not called for
information.
it,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
then, or withhold information, then you start this like slippery slope of a defined path that'll eventually leads to collapse.
Right.
And I don't know what to say to folks. Like, everyone always thinks that they're the exception to history. It's like history is really clear. So I don't know. I guess for me, it was just kind of an interesting learning opportunity. Wanted to talk a little bit about NASA and the flight stuff, because it's really cool. Like, yeah, we're like going back to do something we've kind of done before. We're doing it in a different way with a different purpose. They're also, my understanding is they're going further out of
Mhm.
orbit of the Earth than ever
Yeah.
before as well. So it's not, they're just not looping around the moon. They're going further to the dark side or something. I don't know.
The dark side of the moon. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I didn't really follow the mission too closely, other than I'm like, cool, we're going around the moon and
other,
we're gonna have 4K footage now. Sick.
yeah, yeah. I think there is value to replication, right? It's one of
Mhm.
the core tenets of science is to be able to replicate something. I think it's especially more important when you're talking about difficult engineering feats. Like, do we still know how to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because things change, things evolve, and if you forget the fundamentals, you can't. I mean, I think we talked about it before, where we completely lost indoor plumbing for all the dark ages, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, do we know how to do those things? Is still important, and you got to replicate it to be able to do
And
so.
not to double down on it, but America has a plumbing problem. So the America's supercarrier, our flagship in the Navy, also has toilet issues. Fun fact: this is a well-known thing, apparently.
I didn't know this. Okay.
Yes, so we built this like massive aircraft carrier, which I don't know what the full capacity is, but they're generally like 5 to 8,000 people on a
Huh.
ship, a lot of people. And
Yeah.
in the most recent version of the ship or whatever, they apparently tried to adapt cruise ship plumbing to the aircraft
Oh,
carrier
for
or
to
something,
yeah,
and then
they
it
they don't
apparently
quite
doesn't work
match,
very
right?
well for
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
conditions slash didn't install it right, or who knows like why. um but yeah, so I just think it's a little bit funny that we have oh, we might have lost Nathan. I thought it was kind of funny that it coincides with that. So uh, we'll give the live stream here a second, but I think Nathan might have had a power problem. So we'll leave it there. We'll see you in a couple weeks. We're going to take some time off. So we'll be releasing some episodes on 3.8, and then we'll take some time too. So no live streams until the end of April. We'll see.